In Yu-Gi-Oh!, combo and control are two halves of the same whole. With combo, your intention is to build a board so sturdy and reliable that your opponent is unable to break it, leaving them defenseless to whatever you can do turn 3. In control, your intention is slowing the game down to a pace where your strategy can prosper, and then outgrinding your opponent's resources until they're dead in the water. There is, however, a mysterious middle ground that is usually mocked. Mid-range is a term for these decks that fit in both and yet at the same time fit in neither, right down the middle in some cases. This term is just one that people give a deck that they're too lazy to really delve into and decide which it fits under. And yet, I hesitantly call Virtual World a mid-range deck. Its combos aren't quite as linear as some decks because a lot of things are very hand-dependent, but in this video my hope is to nail down a few specific tips and tricks, show you where the lines deviate, and give some plus sides and unique rulings you may not know about. Okay, for this first combo we'll be starting with Kowloon and Lulu, one of the best hands you can start with, along with a piece of discard fodder that'll come in handy a bit later. We'll always start with Kowloon, grabbing ourselves a copy of Chuche. Something I'm sure a lot of you know is that Kowloon is ashable because of its final effect, but if you ash Kowloon, you are greedy. That's the nicest way I can put it. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it works. I still wouldn't recommend it. Lulu, we'll go ahead and target the Chuche, sending from the deck to the graveyard a copy of Quinlong, and searching us a copy of Gigi. From here, you can either fire off the Quinlong, but I like to wait a second and fire off the Gigi first. So Gigi will be targeting Lulu. From here, the combo can go a little bit of different directions. If you want to make a slightly better board, you can make Chuche to modulate levels, or Zanwu to reborn something, but that requires another piece of discard fodder that you might not have at the time, or you might want to keep a card in hand. It's really up to you at the end of the day. I will go ahead and send both just to show you that you have the option, but know that when you're doing this combo, you're going to have to pick one. From here, we can sync these two off after firing off this Quinlaw to grab ourselves a copy of Lao Lao, discarding this random card from hand, and now we're going to Synchro Summon. It's not super important if you do that first, but I have the cards in an order where that makes the slightest bit of difference, and I didn't want to screw this up. You can either go into Charge Warrior or Juiji, and they both have their perks. Juiji is a little bit harder to get out of the field. It's kind of sticky, and it has a good pop effect. It's also a name if your hand is weird. But Charge Warrior draws you a card, and drawing is crazy. So we're going to draw a random card. Then we can fire off the Lao Lao, targeting the Chuche, able to dump the Nyan Nyan to special summon this Lao Lao and reborn this Gigi, which is going to trigger the Nyan Nyan. Now from here, you have a board full of monsters, and a card in hand still, which is crazy, but there's a lot of things you can do with that. If you fear God at this point, you can make a Gossip Shadow to play around Nibiru. You can, in the event that you have a card that you can set, you can make Zulkin using Lao Lao and Charge Warrior. This Nyan Nyan is a tuner, and when it leaves the field, it'll be banished to trigger the Chuche if you need it. Let's see. Shen Shen is always something I want to have on my end board because of how much it just controls some of the decks in the format right now. Let's see. I can make Shen Shen using Lao Lao and Gigi. That'll give me a Shen Shen. And if I was a bad player, I would make Chuche target Nyan Nyan to make it level 6, and then try to make a Zulkin with that. Zulkin must send a grave. So if it's a Nyan Nyan that's destined to go to the banish zone, or if they control a Shen Shen, they cannot make Zulkin. Do not let your opponent make Zulkin while one of the materials would get banished. That's another one that I think a lot of people know, but it's important that you know it regardless. Let's see. There's really a lot you can do. If you're worried about your hand, you can banish Chuche, make Nyan Nyan bigger, overlay for a Ptolemy, and then Ptolemy detach, add back a Lulu, and then end phase you could add back something like Gigi, and now you have 3 cards in your hand, a loaded Chuche, and a problematic Macrocosmos. It's very, at this point when you have all the materials on board, let's see, the Nyan Nyan, the Gigi, and the Lao Lao. There's so many different directions you can go. It's a little bit intimidating, but that's what practice is for. This combo is more so just showing you how to get to this point specifically, you know? Card in hand, all this material. What do you want to do? We've all been there. You've got a live Chuche. You draw for turn. It's Kowloon. You've got a Shen Shen that you can reborn. It's not a lot, but it's something. The only problem is you have to face down a Dragoon. Let's just say a Dragoon. Something big. Something that you're not quite sure how you out the board like this. Shen Shen is 2,800. It's not going to do enough. But you know for a fact, activating this Kowloon is not going to get negated. They're going to save it for something silly like, I don't know, if they don't pay attention to the graveyard. So what you can do is you can grab Quinlong. And Quinlong is not the important part of this. It is the second part of Kowloon. You probably know by now that Kowloon is ashable, and if you ash Kowloon, you're a bad person. But Kowloon has a few more effects. The one that is important here is that on resolution of Kowloon, you control 2 virtual world gates, and Shen Shen gains 200 attack, which is just enough to squeak by a Dragoon or a Final Sigma that you're not quite sure you could have outed without it. It's important to read the slight little things on some of your cards, like Kowloon. You're never going to be able to resolve that last effect. You're probably never going to be able to resolve the third effect, the 3+ one, but knowing that you're going to gain that extra 200 might be make or break. So keep that in mind. In Virtual World, it's very important to be resourceful. Going second, you're inclined to just do as much as humanly possible, but in Yu-Gi-Oh! That's not always a thing you can do. You're going to probably have dropped the Ash Blossom. You're looking at a hand that looks unplayable. You've got E-Telly for a name, and that's it, right? Wrong. Emergency Teleport is going to grab you a copy of Nyan Nyan from the deck. And from here, you're going to get a giggle or two from your opponent, but normal summon Ash Blossom. This is such a weird hand, but somebody's got to do something with it. You have to try everything humanly possible, and Breaksword falls under that category. We will set a Kowloon, Quinlong rather, detaching, targeting, and targeting something on their side of the field. If they let it through, good. If they don't, oh well, you tried. You did something. Worst comes to worst, if you can make Breaksword stick, you can make a Zeus. But if it goes through, you've got a Quinlong to be able to send. You can banish to search a Lulu. Discarding Zanwu, which is normally just dead in the water in your hand. Banish Zanwu to reborn the Nyan Nyan. Then you can Lulu, target the Nyan Nyan, fire off a... I don't know. I'm trying very hard here. But that's just it. You have to try very hard with some of the hands. They aren't all clear, and some of them are terrible, just like hands down god-awful. But they can do something. And that something is what separates the good players from the bad. You have to look at everything as not only a card in the hand, but what it can do for you in grave. It's hands like this that really do feel like you're not going to be able to do anything against a Shaddoll Invoked player. That's a matchup that not a lot of people enjoy playing against because Winda is such a just brutal card. Punishment is just really pounds you into the ground. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. Except, there's a very, very easy way to bait the Winda and just continue to play all day. And all you need is Kowloon, a name that you can just throw away, and Lulu. Or, I guess, anything will do, but it's going to be a little weird. We'll start with Kowloon, grabbing us a copy of Qinglong. And Qinglong doesn't seem that important against a board that's Schism plus Punishment plus... I don't know if they're playing Mechaba anymore. I haven't gone up against any in a while. But regardless, what the heck is Qinglong going to do? Nothing. I'm going to GG, target Qinglong. They're probably going to flip up Schism in response, special summon a Winda. They think that's it. They think they don't got to worry about anything anymore. Okay, that's going to do that. I'm going to dump a copy of probably Nyan Nyan, I guess. Have a little something for next turn. Okay. And then we're going to declare Qinglong effect. Banishing a copy of Kowloon. Targeting Winda. Qinglong is imperm, and so many people forget about this. Kowloon is a 1-card, spell speed 1 imperm, which doesn't seem like much, but being able to do it against a board that you know will usually stop you is amazing. Because now, that extra name you have in hand can get you whatever you need. If it's Lulu, you can target the Qinglong, dump something, search a monster, keep going. If it's anything else, you can target GG, dump a Qinglong, banish the Qinglong, search. You go so much further than you think you can with just a Kowloon plus a burner name. GG is the burner name in this instance, but it can be literally anything. As long as it's, something that can target, like Nyan Nyan. It's not going to be Nyan Nyan. If you open Nyan Nyan Kowloon, you're shit out of luck. You're dead in the water. Sucks to be you. But if you don't, and you open Kowloon plus a name against the Winda board, you're sitting pretty. And you got to remember that all these cards do a little something more than you think they do. I know Triple Tactics Talent is a pretty expensive card right now, which is why I'm proxying it right now. The thing is, though, once it becomes readily available, going second in Virtual World is just going to be insane. Pretty much for the exact same reason I just described. It's Kowloon, grab a Qinglong, activate Qinglong. They're almost always going to do something about it, because if I can target something on their side of the field and negate its effects, such as Appaloosa or Borreload Savage Dragon, and I can negate those effects, they're going to be in a way worse position. Or they can negate it. Sometimes it'll be negate and destroyed, which means I get to use the effect of Qinglong. But regardless, with Triple Tactics, I'll just be able to rip something out of their hand, take control of a monster. It makes Kowloon and Tactics just ridiculous. These two are just a bonkers combo that I think is really going to propel this deck to be incredible in a post-Drytron, Tri-Brigade, slight nerf format. And I'm really looking forward to it, especially once Tactics becomes less than $80.